Today we have Charles Band, the writer, director, producer, all-around guy for Empire and Full Moon Productions. Legendary about his new movie called Quadrant, and hopefully a lot more. So welcome, Charles Band.
Thank you very much. Happy to be part of this. Happy to talk about all the new stuff, and especially Quadrant and Pulp Noir. So, it's when you've done this long enough, as I have, you really do listen to, of course, the fans. And over these many years, the medium's changed, and now we're sort of in this digital streaming world. Although we still are, waving the physical goods flag high, because I think that's still part of the fan base. People want to own physical goods, and we're actually doing something kind of unique with the Pulp Noir movies. But the bottom line is, I've had some good advice from people who are fans and who also are some of the distributors of my movies. And I got the message about a year ago that people are looking for harder, edgier movies. Films similar to the movies I made back in the day, like From Beyond and Dolls and Castle Freak, Reanimator. So I've invented this new line under the Pulp Noir logo sub-label. And what's unique about those is, again, they are addressing that sort of, hey, make these things edgier and darker. But I think the concepts are all, so far, really, I think, clever. Yes, I do come up with the ideas, but I work with wonderful writers. I'm really not a writer. I can tell a story and I can come up with a log line, but I work with some amazing writers who bring these things to life. And apropos of that, Courtney Joyner is the writer of Quadrant. And Courtney, over the years, has done movies for me like everything from Lurking Fear to Puppet Master 3 to Dr. Mordred. So he was the right voice for this movie, which is a pretty cool. It has a sci-fi element, but I look at it more as a horror movie. It's about a female serial killer who channels Jack the Ripper, and I think these concepts are all pretty strong. So, Pulp Noir is the label. Quadrant's the first film. We've now shot the second movie called Death Streamer, and we're going to reveal the trailer a little later this week, which I'm also excited about. But
I saw that through the Patreon a little bit. A little bit about that. Yeah.
So we have a pretty robust Patreon program. I mean, we have one tier, which I've been to 3 conventions now since we announced this, maybe 4 months ago. And we to date have about 40 subscribers who've subscribed to this, albeit expensive tier, but a really cool one called the Head of the Family. Now, you can get on there for, I think it's $5 and $10. And obviously there is, like, people familiar with Patreon, you are essentially contributing to in this case, the filmmaking process, which is really appreciated because we're no longer in a position as we were back in the 80s and the 90s of having, the budgets that I would like to have to make these films, just because the world is very different. So we created these various tiers, but the super cool tier, and people really responded, thank God. It is $250 a month, or as long as you want to stick around. So it's definitely pricey. But what's cool about it is, first, you get all sorts of stuff that no one's going to see live from set. In real time, I can send shots and things that I'm doing that people are enjoying, which I will continue doing. You also get an executive producer credit on every one of these movies. And that's a real credit.
That's awesome.
It's an on-screen credit. You'll be on IMDb. And then there's tons of cool things that we're doing in advance of showing them to anybody else. You get a $100 gift card every month to our store. So, we have a lot of neat things always coming out, whether they're, 1-to-1 scale replicas or some fun stuff coming down for Halloween. So it's really a cool tier, and it helps us out. And there's some pretty amazing gifts, free gifts that when you sign up, you kind of get just to get going. So that's the Head of the Family tier.
I love the name. Gotta the old movie, of course.
Thank you. Well, I shouldn't get too ahead of myself, but I'm hoping by early next year, with again a little help from my friends, to quote a great song title, that we can finally make Bride of the Head of the Family. Which again, I was 8 years ago, but the business is just really tough right now, and we kind of lose money on every movie we make. I know it sounds ridiculous. But we're lucky enough to have, a streaming channel on Amazon, our own streaming channel, a Tubi channel. And when you release it in all these different formats, we do recover some of the costs of the movie. But it does help to keep us, alive and keep us excited doing what we love to do. I mean, let's face it, I didn't dream of being a bureaucrat. I want to be involved in the filmmaking process, and I've never stopped in all these years. And now Pulp Noir is very exciting because of the nature and the way we're approaching these movies and what the concepts are. So the Patreon thing does help us for sure. It does cover maybe 10% of the budget, but that's significant. We'll take wherever we can get it. So, but back to Quadrant. And
I'll put a link down there for you guys to check out. So if you want to join the Patreon and get some of those perks, I'll put it down below.
Like I say, you will be so richly rewarded with cool stuff as far as if you become especially a member of the head of the family tier. And then you're involved behind the scenes in making these movies. And it's hard to explain it now in such a short period of time. But one of the cool things that I can do, that I do anyway on set, and I'm directing all of these Pulp Noir movies, so I've really taken on a lot because I want them to be, I have a vision for them. And so far we've done 2, and I'm really happy with the way they're turning out. But the whole idea is to involve people, as I've done over the years with different things I've done, even dating back to 15 years ago, I developed something called the Cinemaker, and it was literally a 6 DVD set of different stages on how you make low budget movies and how you market them. Of course, it's really outdated now because the whole world has changed. But in the case of this particular tier and Patreon, what happens is when I'm on set and I'm directing a movie, I set up a shot with the director of photography, talk to the actors, and then I always sit in front of a monitor. So in real time, I can look at the scene and still talk to the actors. And of course, these movies are full of blood and boobies and all sorts of crazy shit. So what I do as a point of reference is I'll shoot this on my iPhone so that I see the screen, my monitor, and in the background, the actors, the scene that I'm directing. And I do this as reference so that afterwards I can go, okay, that was great. Let me look for 1 minute. And sometimes I may discover there's a mistake. Sometimes funny shit happens because you can't help it. We're all humans. Where they're directing horror movies, or I'm directing a horror movie. They're acting. So now what I can do is I can do that shot on a set. And the minute it's done, I push one button, and in real time, every head of the family member gets that video behind the scenes, me direct. Actors, boobies. I'm referring to one shot. It's pretty funny. So it does involve people in the filmmaking process. But back to Pulp Noir. What's also cool about the Pulp Noir effort, and I love doing things that are out of the box and different, is the other thing we're doing that's kind of neat is, the way people release movies now, whether you're a little mini studio or a huge company, is they're called windows. So you first start with streaming. You put it out on your streaming channel, if you have one, or through someone's streaming channel, and you make the movie available for transactional as well, in case somebody wants to, rent it online or download to own. And then a month or 2 later, you release it on the free channels like Tubi. And, we found over the years, I believe at least, that they're very different audiences. One type of person may want to subscribe and not bother with the commercials. Other people couldn't care less because on Tubi and similar channels or Pluto, it's free. So then you release it on Tubi, and then a month or 2 later, you release it on Blu-ray and DVD. That's kind of the pattern. So what we're doing is we're breaking all that down for the Pulp Noir movies. So Quadrant, as an example, releases the 23rd of August. So that's, whatever it is, around the corner. And it releases on the same day across all platforms. So it'll be on stream, transactional, it'll be on Tubi, it'll be on Blu-ray, it'll be on DVD. And just for the hell of it, we're going to release it on VHS as well.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
So wherever you get your enjoyment, it's available. And I think that works because, we're talking to people like right now. I'm talking about this project and this whole effort with Pulp Noir. We're also going to release these movies shortly thereafter, maybe a month or 2 later in black and white. So they've all been composed, with both things in mind. The film noir look, obviously, Pulp Noir, and what would work for color, but what also works in black and white. So kind of fun later on to check out if you like.
Interesting.
Check out the vibes. Yeah. So again, this is someone no one's doing this whole sort of release pattern, and I'm excited for people to see it. And I will say that we had a premiere at Flashback Weekend in Chicago just 2 days ago. We were out there at the convention. and it went super well. People loved the movie, thank God, and it had a lot of nice things to say about it. They also, I guess, is like reminds us of full moon movies of the early '90s.
100%. I was going to say the same thing. I watched it last night,
Oh,
and I
did?
was
Oh, I didn't
like,
know you watched
yeah,
it. So what do you think?
yeah, no, I did, and I was like, man, this takes me back to like the heart of like Full Moon, like how it was, like, and it's like I saw a review, and they kind of said they weren't really. There was like a mixed thing with it, but they said cult, and I was like, yeah, that's what it reminds me of, because Full Moon to me was cult,
Right.
and it was like I rushed to the store
Right.
to rent these kind of things.
Right.
And that it has that same charm, the
Well, the
same
audience said that.
storytelling.
I mean, there was hundreds, and they all said, "Oh, this is like an old full moon movie." They loved the acting was terrific. They loved the blood. They loved the boobies. I mean, it's a pretty. I mean, it's about a female serial killer, and well, I'm glad you watched it. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it actually kind of, in some ways, reminded me a little bit of arcade and how you use the technology then,
right,
to try to do something with that movie,
right,
which was very limited at the time as well.
Super limited.
Yeah.
But, to me, whatever the technology is, I'm still a stop motion animation guy, so I'm like, really retro. But you can't really do that anymore unless you have endless amount of money. And sadly, the fellow who was my main guy, Dave Allen, passed away years ago. So, whatever comes up that makes any kind of sense. I mean, CGI sometimes works. I use it mainly as an additional. So if you have a rod puppet and it's got to look around and its eyes have got to blink, I'll CGI in the eye blink, so I would much prefer to use. But AI is a similar situation. There are kind of cool things about AI you can graft into these movies in a limited way. And sometimes what comes up out of the ooze of AI is actually pretty freaky and cool. So to me, it's just another tool. It's all part of what you want to do to, create these illusions. And so I'm really happy. I mean, Quadrant, the only time we use a little AI mixed in with other effects is when you're in the other world. You're in the Quadrant world. So in a way, it's not like I'm trying to replicate a human or try to fool someone in a real environment, because the movie is 98% the story of this young girl who is turned around by her dark desires and starts killing other chicks.
Yeah, it's got a lot of influence in there, and it feels like, I don't know, I really enjoyed the story, and I thought it was a pretty unique use of AI, because, everybody's scared of it these days, and it's like, there's ways that you can use it, and you use it in the story on top of it.
Right.
So where other people are kind of leaning away, you lean into it to make a point.
Well, and again, there's all of 2 minutes of AI in the movie. It's not a movie. It's not an AI movie. It's literally sprinkled in like a fucking seasoning is what it is. It's like you're making a minestrone. If you have a little bit of AI in there, sometimes it spices up a moment. So yeah, it is a tool, and no, I'm really happy with the film. Thanks for watching it.
Those moments were very dreamy, and I feel like that kind of stuff is dreamy stuff like that anyway, like how your mind would be perceived. And maybe this is a good opportunity to tell them what the movie is, just in case they haven't seen it. So
right. Well, I'm not sure. I don't want to tell the whole story, but I would say the other movie that inspired me a little bit that I love, most people probably haven't seen it because I think it's 40 plus years old, is called Altered States. I'm not sure if you've seen
love that movie.
Great movie. And in a way, when he goes in that tank, he goes into another world. Of course, back then the technology was very different. No, I think it's a good ride. It's the first of these Pulp Noir movies. Death Streamer, which is, we're going to literally later this week reveal the trailer, which I'm happy about. Again, it's another really cool concept. I've made my share of vampire movies. This is about a very decadent vampire in a mansion, of course, that he has a kill room. And not only does he, kill his victims and sucks their blood, and of course, they're all, of course, women, which is sort of traditional in vampire movies.
Sure.
But on top of all that, he live streams their deaths. And there's a reason for that. So, once again, it's a spin on, an old vampire tale, so to speak. And I think it turned out really, really well. I mean, we're in a world also today, and I'm not even a big fan, but, you put these helmets on or these glasses on, and you're now in a different reality. And I talked to some people about this, some of the fans that came over to Flashback Weekend who are like really, I mean, they know more about my movies than I remember. I mean, there are fans who know these movies dating back to the early 70s. And they really love the organic part of it. None of them were really into this new virtual reality. But, there's also a lot of young people and kids who are into that. And, I don't want to exclude them from the experience either. I like them to be part of this new wave of movies. And again, I'm not going to I've made some faux virtual reality movies that were all sexy. Yeah. Let's put it this way. I made a movie called, I tell you what the fuck was it called? Anyway, I don't remember. But,
Famalian, was it?
Well, Famalian, kind of, but it was called, no, it's called Virtual Encounters. So,
okay, that's right.
As silly as it was, it at least, the scenes were pretty. But, I want to keep, part of the effort is to attract new fans. I can't keep making sequels to Puppet Master and Demonic Toys and all the movies that people know me. I am going to make Leech Woman Puppet Master movie one day. That I've got to do.
I saw something about that too. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Make Bride of the Head of the Family. I mean, I will stick to those roots as well, but I think Pulp Noir is going to deliver some really, really cool shows. The next one I'm doing, which will be shot entirely on location in Italy, is going to be similar to a movie I made years ago with Cheryl and Fenn called Meridian. It's today they would call it a paranormal romance, kind of a gothic paranormal romance. So, we got catacombs and tombs, and this is going to be, again, super organic and really creepy. And it's called The Lost Girl's Private Diary. So you can only imagine what the elements are. So I think the Pulp Noir movies will be cool. So people can go. They can obviously go to fullmoonfeatures.com. That's where all our movies are. They should subscribe. I think we're one of the last independent streaming sites on earth because difficult to keep this thing alive. For $6 and change a month or less, if you subscribe a year, we have literally, I don't know, over 1,000 movies. We put up 3-4 movies a week. I mean, we do a lot of licensing aside from our own movies. We license a lot of really interesting films, whether they're from Blue Underground or they're Euro trash or whatever they are. We have quite a collection of movies. So if you're into, in the old days, you go into the video store, there'd be a section of all these weirdo movies, you'd be able to rent. But we're kind of like, that kind of, again, some people don't even know what video store. There's some kids who came, this one kid who was amazing, who was a fan of Puppet Master. He was like, I think 7 or 8, and he's seen him. I'm probably a little young to see all the Puppet Masters, but he was into it. And we were talking, and I said, well, and I kind of forgot. I said, have you ever been to a video store? He said, what's a video store? He said, I think I've heard of that. And, I had to kind of explain what it was. But you have to remember there's a generation or two soon, people who never been in a video store, don't know what that experience is like. So I also want to reach out to those people and bring them into the fold, with what they're talking about and doing today as well.
Well, and as a collector, because I collect a ton of movies, that's me reliving those moments in a way. I was going to the. So I think there's like a newer generation that's kind of like struggling with the physical media a little bit because everything is on the TV, so they don't need to worry about that. But I think there's another generation that'll sweep up and start doing the real stuff again.
I think it's a collector's world. I mean, I don't envision us going back to Blu-rays or VHS in any significant way. But they're out there. People like. I mean, again, I got the biggest reaction when I said we're also going to release it on VHS. All the Pulp Noir movies. We love it. I'm going to buy a copy. It's like, well, if we ship 300, I'll be delighted. It's not huge, but it's part of the fun. I mean, I've always made movies that I hope people would enjoy. I'm getting some really good feedback on Quadrant, which I'm happy about because, it's those movies are a little more expensive and not so easy. I'm excited about these films for sure. People should definitely be part of the Patreon thing. If you got a lot of dough, become the head of the family. If you look at what you get for head of the family, it's pretty impressive. And then you'll be on set with me. I'll be sending you all this crazy stuff.
I was going to say, that's pretty cool just to have that option right there. I want to ask you, though, as far as Pulp Noir is done, it seems like you're kind of aiming it to do newer stuff. Right. Are you going to introduce any sort of like reboots maybe of some of the old stuff to do in like a newer way at all? Or
No, Pulp Noir is going to stick to its sort of guns and new concepts, not sequels. And I'll
Good.
vary the
Okay.
same next 2 years. I'll make a few of those too. You know, I do want to make the Puppet Master show, and I'd love to make Bride of the Head of the Family. There's two or three in the mix that I'd like to make. But I think Pulp Noir, I think people, once they see Quadrant and Death Streamer, I think they're going to really like where we're heading. And I mean, these movies have a little sense of what I've done as well. It's not like they're all out of left field. The Lost Girls Private Diaries can be very much like Meridian, you know, which I think is one of the better movies I've made. I mean, Sherilyn Fenn had just come off of Two Moon Junction, you know, or Twin Peaks. She was amazing. We shot it in the castle and catacombs, and you know, it's a gothic, you know, creepy romance.
One last question for you, I gotta ask. I'm a big fan of Bad Channels, and a lot of your fans out there have been wondering about that one. Is there any plans for any of that anytime soon in the future?
Well, not specifically Bad Channels, but you know, the director is my closest friend, Ted Nicolau. Ted has done movies. He started with me editing Tourist Trap. He made TerrorVision, which is equally as insane, and he's done all the Subspecies movies. So Ted and I are looking up some new projects. I would say to some degree in the vein of music, you know, some music tied in. The Bad Channels was definitely bizarre.
It really is. It's just one of those movies that I know is like not everybody's favorite necessarily, but the fans of it are pretty wild.
Right. Well, unless I'm remembering wrong, there are little chicks and test tubes in that movie, right?
Yes, the Doll Man tie-in.
Right.
Yeah.
So because when I made Doll Man versus the Demonic Toys, when I directed that, it was like an early crossover movie. I thought, poor Doll Man's got to have a doll chick. I got to find some girl his size, you know, to make the thing even more enjoyable. So that's what I did. I sort of borrowed that character and the actual actress from Bad Channels, and she is, I forget the actress's name. She is Doll Chick in Doll Man versus the Demonic Toys.
Thank you for taking the time with me. I appreciate it very much, and I'm looking forward to Pulp Noir. So, you know, congrats, and I wish you the best of luck on that.
Thank you. All right, man. We'll be talking soon for sure.